Frankie here. Today I'm joined by Illz. We're here in Toronto to talk about experience and knowledge on breaking. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just get right into it, man. First thing is a recap from this weekend. We just had Ontario Open, the ODS Regional Qualifier. Illz, do you have any thoughts you want to share about how the weekend went?
The event was great. Silver. I got second place. The event was nice. It was quick. It was actually really quick. I'm not sure about the prelims because I arrived pretty late, but the battles were fairly quick. Straight to the point.
That's a good point. For these larger events with a lot on the line, stakes are high, you kind of want to slam through the event a little bit as opposed to maybe a different jam where you're trying to enjoy it, get the vibe, get the ciphers going. Is that about right?
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like it's more like a dance sport, so it's kind of just competition and in and out.
So this was actually in the semis. Great exchange, great matchup. We had Minnesota Joe coming out from the Midwest to have this exchange with Toronto's finest. So let's actually watch one of his rounds.
I looked up to Joe a lot. I really respect him. So it was really just an honor to battle and exchange with him. I tell him often too, I really admire his art, his artistic approach to the dance, and nothing but respect.
Any other thoughts you had about the weekend? So do you know what happens kind of next after this?
Yeah, so in order to do the national championship, we have to actually do the regional. That was a big reason why I did it, because we just had to do it. But yeah.
So how this basically is going to go for the course of this interview is we're going to go through some footage, and you'll have an opportunity to share basically what you remember about yourself, what was important to you at the time, what was maybe your mentality. The first clip I have here is of 2009 Ground Illusionz versus Supernatz.
Bring that back. I thought like in order to be original and creative, you had to thread everything. So this is a back foot. Beanie comes off. I think they bridge smoked me here.
How old were you? 17 about?
I think so. Yeah, I think I was still in high school.
So how long have you been breaking at that point?
5-6 years or something like that.
Okay. And what do you think, you know, when you reflect upon your younger self, like what kind of person you were?
Just hungry and very passionate. Just a kid trying to find myself.
Did you have peers to kind of match up to in terms of your mentality, like how hungry you were? I know Bern, early on you had him, and you guys kind of were at the same age, experience level, right?
Yeah, Bern was, still is, I would say, was my partner in crime. We started around the same time, and he was actually in the crew before I was. Yeah, we kind of just inspired and elevated each other with our creativity and our threads.
I was very intentional about this particular clip, Supernatz, right? As an aside, I get a kick out of this because Supernatz was coming out to Michigan maybe at least once a year, and you just stomped everyone around this time. They were a really big name. Anyone that was breaking around that time, like myself, we're all familiar with bridge, puzzles, dizzy, Antin. For maybe the younger folks that aren't as familiar, can you maybe talk a little bit as to what Supernatz might have impacted or influenced for Toronto during the season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't really speak for Toronto because I know there's a lot of history that I don't really want to get too deep into. But for myself, they were definitely a huge inspiration. Coming up, I still remember seeing Dizzy at SRSC. It was a community center inside Scarborough Center, inside of a mall. And just seeing Dizzy and Bridge practice there, it was just inspiring, being in the presence. I guess it was sort of almost at the time where YouTube was coming up. Like I was like a YouTube generation B-boy. So seeing the footage online almost on like a weekly basis, and they would just be killing it, winning competitions back to back, and that really inspired me to want to win and be like a champion.
So to be clear, were you based locally in proximity to them?
Yeah, I grew up in Scarborough, Arkansas, so actually very close to here.
Okay.
And yeah, I saw them in Scarborough a lot.
So you were practicing with them too? You got the chance to have a little instruction from them or guidance from them?
Not a lot of instruction, but just being in their presence was definitely inspiring. And
sometimes that's enough, right?
It is more than enough, and just being in awe, that kind of like starstruck moment where they'll be dancing and you're not even dancing, you're just so shy and just get into the cypher that you just be in awe just watching.
Any other thoughts you have about this particular clip or about this particular time in general?
It was like a life-defining moment. Also just seeing what was possible, and I guess being the younger guys coming up. I think that battle is going to go down as like a legendary battle in Toronto.
We're going to fast forward a little bit in time here. We're going to go to 2014. We obviously have to talk about this battle at Freestyle Session World Finals. You had the one-on-one with Thesis.
I remember this too because I think Thesis just came off of his win from Silverback Open.
Yes.
So there was a lot of hype, you know, and he was a skilled dancer. Sort of just that new guy coming up. I was probably nervous as hell, just pacing back and forth, you know. He's killing it. There he is. But actually, I remember as he finished his round, I was like, I think I can actually take this.
Incredible exchange. What are we looking at here?
It was all or nothing. If I lose, you know, it is what it is. Almost expected, you know, because it's Thesis, and I didn't have a rep or name really at that time. But I remember in that moment, I was like, but if I do win, this could change my life. And I kind of just gave it all I had in that moment. I didn't travel all this way to do one round. I was lucky enough to actually make it to the top 32 because I had won the Boston Foilers anniversary, the one-on-one, which actually earned me a spot in the top 32 bracket. So
you didn't have to do a prelim?
I didn't have to do a prelim.
Do you remember how many guys they were for that?
To be honest, I don't even remember, but I remember the lineup and the people that I had to battle after. In all honesty, I don't know if I would have made it if I had to do a prelims, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying. This is kind of just taking from my personal experience. I'm based in Detroit. Detroit is like 4 hours from Toronto. And your guys' style as a community as a whole is just so different. If I were to put it into words, you guys have a very deep sense of artistry. For you to start traveling from outside of Toronto, which has maybe a more distinct feel to somewhere like the States, is there any kind of style differences or approaches to the dance that you kind of picked up on pretty early on?
Yeah, especially coming from a city like Toronto, and for myself being heavily influenced by Supernatz and more specifically Bridge, I really wanted to just emulate him and literally physically be him. I saw him as the end-all be-all, like the god of breaking for me. Just long story short, when things didn't work out and what I had thought, I thought I would eventually maybe become a Supernat. Things didn't fall through, which was completely fine. And I had met Frost shortly after, in which he introduced me to, I guess, how to think more creatively. And that's pretty much where my dancing evolved because of Frost and his mentorship and guidance. So, sorry, back to the question. I always wanted to win, but with my style. A winning style isn't necessarily a memorable style. And I always wanted to be remembered for myself.
Winning style is not necessarily a memorable style. Being memorable to yourself and to others. And you're saying the kind of competitive success kind of falls in place after that?
Yeah, more importantly than winning too is honestly for me is like the artistry. Yeah, I just want to create it, and I think that's a big reason why I fell in love with this dance. Even with dance going into the Olympics and all this dance sports stuff and checking all the boxes and all that, and of course I want to win, but I want to win with my style, and to me that's the most important thing, is representing myself the way I want to dance.
That's absolutely great advice, especially for younger guys. I think a lot of us older folks wish we could really understand that early on, because it can kind of mess you up mentally as you get further and further down the competition.
For sure, but I also have to give a lot of thanks to the people who paved the way, especially in Toronto, seeing that we really value originality. I don't think I would have held that so near and dear because without the people who were there before me. I owe a lot to, I guess, the older people like Bag of Tricks, Supernatz, and the list goes on, Boogie Rats. Yeah, because originality is probably the most important thing in Canada.
Rock Harder 2015.
I was wearing like a burgundy windbreaker, right? It's already so good. I miss events like this where there's actually like an audience for cheering. I realize with a lot of the dance sports stuff, I feel like that's like an element that's missing.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I feel like breaking as a whole is getting bigger, but it almost feels like the spectator and the audience is getting smaller. And the only people who are attending these events are the athletes or the dancers themselves.
It's a strange challenge, for sure.
Yeah.
I have been to a couple of these events. It's a little hit or miss. You can get an event that is pretty energetic. My question here is, while we obviously don't have the personal details of your relationship with Phil, from the outside, it's definitely really interesting to see how early on, you guys had several exchanges. This was not the only one, right? Early on in your guys' career. And then now you guys get down with each other, united rivals. That's awesome to see. So what do you see from that kind of progression with you and Phil?
2015, I think, so Red Bull had Red Bull Canada before that.
Yes.
I remember battling very vividly to Phil in the finals and beating him. I was like, damn, like from that day, I already knew, I was like, this kid is gonna be a star. I kind of saw it unfold, and I remember from that, shortly after we formed United Rivals, I had a talk with Ant, and he had mentioned like if there was anybody else we would want to put down. And I was like, Phil, like we gotta grab this boy. He's something special.
You had a crystal ball.
I had a crystal ball, and I just saw the talent, the passion, just the commitment.
Was geography a challenge?
In all honesty, it is a challenge, because Vancouver is a little bit further. It's not just like a drive, it's like a plane ride, a 6-hour plane ride. But we've been lucky enough to see each other at different events. And usually when Phil and I specifically, when we prepare for an event, we'll have maybe like a few days to prepare before, and then we can kind of come up with routines and stuff like that. He definitely inspires me a lot to just continue to push my craft. And just speaking on that battle as well, it changed my approach to the dance as well.
How so?
Seeing that before, the way I used to dance would be like a set, and it would take me from, let's say, like point A to point B would be, I guess, fairly long. I would kind of have like a longer setup to that one defining moment at the end. But when I had Battle Phil, I realized that he had a lot shorter setups to his movements. So in that round, he could actually do more, as opposed to me doing like an intro to like an ending. He would have like the in-between jabs, and he would do a lot of small jabs, as opposed to I would pretty much wait for that final knockout at the end. And sometimes you get a little bit tired at the end, and your energy drops, so you might not actually finish as strong as you would like with that banger.
You're not necessarily changing your style or your movements, but using more in a different way, maybe a little bit more creative, smarter, efficient way?
Yeah, definitely more efficient, shorter intros so that I can actually do more in my round, more material in my rounds, while also like conserving my energy. 2015
seemed like a pretty big year. You were representing a lot of battles with Ground Illusionz, with Burn, with 2-on-2s. You're representing with Illz, Napalm. One of my favorites. You guys had B-Boy Classic that year. Any lessons you remember for just being on the road so much and having to, you know, battle these monsters like from here and there all over the world?
Yeah, I guess the big takeaway from the travels was that you have to stay consistent in your practice, especially at the time of B-Boy who was doing full sets. A lot of it becomes very predictable, and then that element of surprise kind of goes away. So staying consistent in your practice, constantly creating and recreating yourself.
If you're trying to battle week after week, trying to get ready for a battle, that kind of looks different, your practice, if you're just trying to stay conditioned as opposed to coming up with new stuff and developing your style, right?
Yeah, when the battles are really close together, it's kind of hard to, I guess, change your style or make adjustments. There's definitely battle fatigue too when you're battling week after week. But the thing is, the battle itself is a practice.
So make sure to take away the lessons from the battle itself. Even if you win, there's still something to learn.
Yes, always. And the battle is kind of like the ultimate test anyways, right? So to take away, you know, win or lose, you kind of just go back to the lab and work on your weaknesses. Just for some of the younger B-boys, I know like our goal is to win, you know, and I love winning, you know, it's a part of the journey, but it doesn't really matter that much because win or lose, at the end of the day, you're just gonna go back to practice anyways. So you have to, honestly, it's gonna sound cliche, but love the process of just breaking, you know, and they say like the person who loves walking is gonna walk further. And the same thing applies to breaking. If you love it, that's all that matters.
Jumping forward in time, we're gonna go to 2022. 2022 is a huge year for you. I love following your battles during this time. We're gonna watch your battle from Lansing, Michigan. Teamed up with Burn, Cap City. You're gonna watch a battle with you and the Atlanta B-Boys.
I remember it was a close one.
Yep, just Will and Yanni. What are we watching here?
Style, baby. It was really fun. Honestly, I love outdoor jams. It's just a vibe. It was really hot that day, but yeah, the energy and the chemistry between Burn and I feel like that's just something that can never be replaced. And it's a genuine connection that we have. We've known each other since we were 15. We were like boys, and now we're men. So.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What do you think it is about you and Burn specifically that makes you bond so well?
It's the friendship and everything that goes on behind the scenes of breaking itself. He's definitely helped me through some of my darkest moments, especially dealing with a really bad breakup. We share a very similar mentality and approach to how we want to dance. We both value originality and we want to look different and separate from everyone else. Having someone who constantly pushes you to elevate your craft is very important, and I think you don't really see that often nowadays, especially with the competitions being so focused on one-on-ones.
Yes.
I feel very fortunate and lucky to have someone kind of come up with me at that time where we were both beginning. And of course, you know, he's taking his career into different things and such, but having that in the beginning, you know, having someone that you can go to practice with, honestly, practicing with your friends, that's like the only way you'll get better.
Yeah. Bit of a rivalry when you guys first started too?
A bit of a rivalry, and also just the same goals. You know, for us, we really wanted to beat Supernatz. So having someone with the same goals, that definitely helped a lot.
I think for anyone watching you guys perform, it really shows like that chemistry. You guys are just one solid unit.
Yeah, and I felt like, you know, not to boast or anything, but I felt like our routines were really good. Yeah, and it took a lot of time to develop as well, and it wasn't just like a, hey, let's do this choreographed routine where we're both doing the same thing. It was a lot of contact and touching, which I guess you needed both of our minds to come as one to really to create something like that.
And just to get that rhythm right.
Yeah. And we didn't even, like, for us, we're not like the most musical b-boys, but we didn't really have counts in our routines. We just knew each other's movements so well that it was, okay, the moment I touch this, you're gonna go through here, and this and this. It was, yeah, just chemistry.
One last clip we're gonna show today. We can't get away from today without talking about BC1, of course. Aussie quarters, that's nuts. That's sick. Alright, what are we watching here?
I knew that if I beat him, I would go to the world stage, and I kind of just left it all on the floor. Intensity, conviction, everything.
Having the vision, you were ready.
I was ready, and I think the intensity in which I battled in that battle was different from, I guess, a lot of the other battles. Because for me, I think for a lot of B-boys as well, or B-girls, the Red Bull stage is like the stage, you know. And I was like, if I can get through this battle, you know, the day after tomorrow is going to be like everything I ever wanted and envisioned as a child. So.
What do you remember about the battles before that? I know you had a battle in Illinois. So how do you feel like you were performing up until that time?
I just felt so ready, and I was determined to win. Like, I envisioned it, everything. I was like, the outfit, you know, the stage. Especially the year before, I had lost the Canadian Cypher, and this was kind of like the redemption, the comeback story. Honestly, I'm so thankful for the experience of losing the year before, because it honestly just made me so much stronger that year.
It's all part of the journey. Right?
It's all part of the journey, and that's why you gotta love the process.
Any other battle advice as we start coming to a close here?
Just in dance in general, I would say be yourself, because you can win a battle, but not necessarily feel good about the way you danced or the way you performed. And whether you win or you lose, I think the most important thing is to just be proud of the art that you created.
A little bit more of a technical question on the dance side. You and Vern, if I were to compare you two, you guys are very intentional and deliberate with using your arms and your hands. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think for myself, I think I just have abnormally large hands to begin with. I think I use a lot of my hands and stuff like this, like the jazz hands, because I did some like contemporary improv stuff, and I think to look bigger on stage, you kind of want to just extend everything. On top of that, I also have super long arms, and I think, yeah, it's just an extension of my body. I think the hands kind of just make everything even look bigger.
And even in terms of incorporating it into your moves, you're thinking about how the overall shape is with your hands. When you say you want to make your shapes bigger.
Yeah, because a lot of the material and the things that we do are so intricate and small and detailed that you want to present it in a way where, you know, not only your opponent or the person you're battling can see it, but also the judges and the audience. And sometimes you can't necessarily get away with the smallest details. And it could be really dope, and I'm not to take away from whatever you want to do, dance the way you want to dance, but you also want to present it in a way where people can see it.
Yeah.
Especially in that battle sense, right? So
the final discussion point as we come to a close here is 28 years old. I started maybe a little bit later than you did, but maybe you noticed this similar experience. I've noticed this question feel relatable to a lot of people across different geographies. Right? It's not just the Midwest. Canada too. I was in LA about a month ago. Breaking seems to be falling off a little bit in terms of overall people showing up to events, people practicing, as opposed to like 10 years ago. I don't know if it's technology. You know, some of the older folks will talk about if you wanted to see people just in general, or you wanted to know what happened at a jam, you just had to be there. So maybe it's a technology thing. That's the first part of the question. Do you kind of agree with that?
in Toronto specifically, yes, definitely. I think there's various reasons. I think especially with breaking and dancing into Olympics, it's very one-on-one focused, so there isn't really much need for maybe a crew, in a sense where, yes, you can practice with these people, but a lot of people also dance for the social aspect part of it. And when there are no crew battles, I guess they have a lack of motivation to practice. Hip-hop and breaking is separate for a lot of the generation today. So yes, there might be a lot of people who like breaking, but they don't necessarily enjoy hip-hop as a whole, or the culture, or the music, which also explains why we don't really have a lot of quote-unquote like jams where people stay. You know, they battle, and when they lose, they kind of just leave. The party aspect is almost completely gone. There are no, we do have cypher jams, but I think people are just so focused on the competition itself that the jam or the party isn't fun anymore.
You made two really interesting points. The first one I've actually never thought about until you've articulated it in this way, is that breaking has become more one-on-one focused. We're not as tight with each other maybe as we were 10 years ago. So the focus has shifted in that way a little bit with respect to the competition. And then the second thing you're talking about is the separation from the art form from just the overall culture itself. Is there a jam in recent memory that you were like, this really balances the two, this really balances the high-level quality battles, and then at the same time, people seem like they're having fun?
Yeah, I think bigger jams like IBE, Outbreak, bigger jams like that where it's like more like a festival, and then people can enjoy the battles, but they also have the opportunity to do other things. You know, they can shop at the local vendors, also different areas where they play different music. I think just the whole umbrella of bringing other styles of dancers in one place, that definitely helps. Maybe we actually just need, it's going to make the jams longer, maybe just like all style battles and breaking battles together.
If we're all trying to get an idea of how to make breaking more immersed in the culture, we got to try to get out to these events if we can, definitely. Anything in the States that you can think of that are parallel, those are, if you can't make it out to Europe or...
Yeah, oh, actually, Radical Force, I know that's in Asia, but that was one of the jams that I just visited.
Oh, okay.
And that was amazing. It could probably just be the setting as well. Like you're on a beach, and I don't think there's actually like a cash prize for like the one-on-ones and like the crew battles. So everybody's there to just have a good time, just to rep. But it always brings, I guess, like a lot of high-quality competitors, but people aren't so focused on the competition. Of course there are, but it's the event as a whole that people are interested in. That's why people go.
It's like a vacation.
Like a vacation. Yes, there's dance, but there's music and food and culture and just everything as a whole, as opposed to just the battle itself. And I think nowadays everything is just so competition focused that when people lose, they just want to leave because there's nothing else to stay for.
The second part of the question, so with respect to breaking, and life just happens. You know, we understand that not everyone's going to stay in this game. There's other things people want to pursue. But like I was saying before, I truly feel like if you love breaking, it's impossible to separate breaking from other life aspects. They are so intrinsically linked. What kind of life lessons do you feel like you've just extracted from breaking?
Dance has taught me so much. has taught me consistency, work ethic, discipline. So much about passion and how things just take time, relationships, friendships, everything. People for life, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there things that you take from other aspects of life and you incorporate into your dance? I know you do hair, right? For example, something like that. Maybe other career things, do you incorporate any of those concepts or ideas into your breaking?
I think if anything, I've taken more from dance itself and applied it to other areas of my life. I think I have a pretty well executed style, clean and just precise, and I think that's kind of how I am as a person. I feel like I have like OCD. So just even with haircuts, very detail oriented. Everything has to be perfect, symmetrical, the angles, the lines, the fade, like super like perfect gradient, and just everything, the way I organize things, very precise.
I asked this question because it kind of goes back to the first part of the question of people are falling off and they're not finding as much time or they don't want to dedicate to dance as much. How do we pitch to them? Breaking is going to help you with other ventures in your life.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. Movement is therapy. And whether you're dancing to compete or dancing just to have fun, I think having movement as kind of like your general anchor, something as your foundation just in life, huge benefits to just movement in general. So if you can do it, and dance is fun, you know, and you can enjoy it with a group of people, and that's the best part about it. And I think people who do social things like play basketball in a group setting or tennis or whatever it may be, they stick to it because there's other people around to kind of motivate them. So I think dance is like that perfect thing to do, and you can also enjoy the music.
Yeah, I really like your choice of words when you describe movement. Like, it keeps you sharp, like, creatively, physically. Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. So, Ilz, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today. Again, I really appreciate your time as a professional to come onto the show. Parting thoughts that you might have, maybe where can we follow you, social media-wise, and two, where are we going to see Ilz in these next couple of years?
So I guess like any finishing statements or anything, cheesy as it sounds, stay true to yourself, dance the way you want to dance, and just create from the heart. And also, one final thing too, be stubborn in the way you want to move, you know. Maybe you created something and people don't necessarily dig it or like it, but at the end of the day, if you like it, fucking do it. Just do it, just move the way you. There's been so many times where I've created moves where people are like, that looks whack or that doesn't look good, but to me it feels good. And I'll take that over anything, any day. Socials, Illz Put, that is my Instagram. For the next few years, I can't really tell you. I just kind of take things day by day and see me when you see me.
Your choice of words, once again, be stubborn with the way that you want to dance. Because no one can see the full picture that you have, even if you haven't necessarily created that move to its final stage.
Yeah.
Like, no one can look into your brain and tell you that that's wrong, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you scrap an idea before it's even fully developed. So just hold on to that idea and just kind of keep refining, keep chipping away at it, and something will come out of it, you know? Yeah. It might not look exactly like the way it started, but keep the ideas, you know? And that's how a lot of times where I come up with the details, because some of those details are so small that they might not be a move per se, but I can incorporate that into a bigger move. Or just have those little details, little jabs in between the bangers. So no wasted movements, you know, everything is like thought out and like just place and time for everything.
Yeah, definitely. Great advice for us to take back to the lab with us. Ilz, once again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Frankie.
We're out of here. Peace.